All right, man, peace. So, 1980s Celtics legend Robert Parrish decided that he was going to levy an attack on Mr. Brad Stevens. And I think that he did so for a myriad of reasons. For those of you who don't know, Robert Parrish is probably one of the most underrated big men in the NBA's history. He went head-to-head with Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, Moses Malone, Patrick Ewing, Hakeem Olajuwon, and held his own. Well, anyway, they're going to talk about it, and I'm going to chime in.
I think he gets a little too much praise, but I like what he's doing. They giving him all the love like he done won 3 or 4 championships.
Now, don't Robert Parrish sound like your uncle who wants to tell you about how everything was better back in the 60s and 70s? Brad Stevens, they giving him all the love like he reinvented the wheel. I mean, please. They were dribbling basketball before Brad Stevens was in his father's balls. I mean, shit.
Yes. Now, granted, don't get me wrong, he's a solid coach. I give him that. I feel like he's done it out.
He do all right. I watched the game. He run a little pick and roll here and there, but they giving him all the love. I'm mad as hell right now because I asked Brad Stevens if he needed a coach for the big man. He told me no. So I'm going to attack his ass.
An outstanding job. I'm just saying the amount of praise he's getting. You think he don't want a championship or two? They don't give Steve Kerr that much love. Come on.
I can't believe this shit. Talking about Brad Stevens like he Red Auerbach, or like he's, James Naismith or something. You think he reinvented something. I mean, the basketball's still round, ain't it? The hoop is still 10 feet high. Brad Stevens, why won't you call me back? Why won't you give me a job? For those of you who don't know, Robert Parrish recently fell out with Larry Bird because he stated that Larry Bird would not give him a job in the NBA. And I think that this is really the source of a lot of Robert Parrish's more inflammatory comments. He wants a job coaching associated with basketball, whether it be in the NBA or what have you, and he cannot get one. And you see this a lot with retired NBA centers because the center position is not viewed as being a position associated with basketball knowledge. For the most part, when you see a former NBA player who's now a coach, he usually was a point guard. It's very difficult for prominent big men to get jobs in the NBA as coaches, especially head coaches, because what's assumed is that they're not particularly bright and they were not really involved in the strategic aspect of the game. Now, I remember Dave Cowens was the coach of the Charlotte Hornets back in the 90s, and of course, Paul Silas, he was a coach for a while recently, but other than that, it's very difficult for them to get jobs. For years, Patrick Ewing could not get a job. Kareem Abdul-Jabbar cannot get jobs coaching in the NBA. He just cannot get them. So these are more of the issues that people need to be talking about. Not whether or not a female like Becky Hammon can get a job coaching in the NBA. That's the biggest abomination. And that's why I always tell you, brothers, that these liberal movements are not for you. They just want to use you as the front line so that these other demographics can wax fat. The homosexuals, the women, they're going to be the beneficiaries of your blood, your sweat, and your tears. I promise you that. There's no way in the world with all the players that came into and out of the NBA that Becky Hammon should be coaching in the NBA. That's an abomination.
Come on.
That was Celtics legend Robert Parrish on Sirius XM Radio saying that Brad Stevens gets too much credit and can't be considered one of the game's greats until he wins a chip. Stephen A., you agree with that?
No, I don't agree with that. I think that Brad Stevens has proven to be a great coach and he deserves a lot of credit.
Let me say this. I think that it's actually the opposite. I think that Brad Stevens has not gotten enough credit. And now it's just recently that many of the members of the liberal sports media have started to acknowledge what he's done in regards to that team. I've been talking about his performance for the duration of the season because I know a great coach when I see one. But beyond that, we're talking about a coach who did not receive one vote for Coach of the Year, so he cannot be getting too much credit. Maybe Robert Parrish thinks he's getting too much attention. But credit shows in regards to your peers deciding that they're going to acknowledge your efforts, and not one of them decided to do so.
A lot of the credit that he receives. I have no problem, however, with Robert Parrish saying there's a job that has to be finished here, because I think what he's...
I agree with that, but I think that even if the Celtics were to lose their next 4 games, they've pretty much maxed out what people thought they were going to do. I mean, once again, I thought that their first-round matchup against Milwaukee was a pick-em series, and it pretty much ended up that way. But it seems as though they're getting better as the playoffs go along.
He's pointing to is the fact that other coaches who have been great in the past, there's a level of accountability that was attached to them. If you didn't get it done, you didn't get the praise. So why should this guy get the praise? I think it's more about that than the real credentials that Brad Stevens brings to the table based on what we've seen.
Yeah, I disagree with Robert Parrish. I think Stevens is getting appropriate praise. You might not put him ahead of Greg Popovich on the lifetime achievement.
No, you would not put him ahead of Popovich in regards to achievements, but in regards to his ability to communicate the appropriate game plan to his players and have them execute out there on the court, he's right up there with anyone. And to me, he is the preeminent coach in the NBA right now in regards to what he's been able to do with the roster that he has.
Scale yet, obviously. But in terms of who's the best right now, he's right in the conversation with Popovich. The real question is, based on the talent that you have, how do you do in the playoffs? We've seen coaches succeed in the
I agree, sir.
regular season. But Celtics are a talented team. You can't do it with no talent. But one of the reasons we think so highly of Popovich is not just the championship. It's that when you've looked on paper and said, that's not the most talented team. Damn, they won 60 games. They got how far in the playoffs? Boston is missing their best player and a guy who was thought to be their second best player when the season started in Kyrie and Gordon Hayward. And here they are catching wreck in the playoffs. A lot of that has to do with coaching. He beat the Greek Freak. He figured out Ben Simmons, took him away. He's taken everyone away except for LeBron, and everything LeBron's getting is being contested. That's the coach.
And that truly is a testament to a true high-level understanding and mental acumen in regards to whatever particular sport you happen to be in. And you see this with all great performers in the sports world. What they do better than everyone else in their field is they take away what their opponent does best. We saw that with Floyd Mayweather for 20 years. We're seeing that with Brad Stevens and the Boston Celtics right now. That's what they do. They attack what you do best and they take that away. They're not concerned with your weaknesses. They believe that as long as they enter the contest with a focused manner, that they're going to be able to take advantage of what you do poorly anyway. They want to take away what you do well because that's how they break you down mentally.
I think the most important point to peel from all of this is that nobody in the modern day era is questioning Brad Stevens.
We also see that with the Golden State Warriors, especially in their approach to teams that play in that player-centric style, whether it be LeBron, Russell Westbrook, or James Harden. They actually want those players to try to go off and beat them 1-on-5 because it will allow them to slowly siphon away a lot of the life force of that team that those players happen to be on. And that's why you see this over and over again with the LeBron James system. Every time he goes up against a team like that, whether it be the San Antonio Spurs, the Warriors, or now the Celtics, they play him the same way. They want to slowly siphon out the life force energy of his team by feeding into his egocentric outlook on how to play the game of basketball. Go ahead, LeBron. Go ahead, Russell. Go ahead, James. Take all the shots. Go in between your legs 5,000 times. Burn yourself out so that by the fourth quarter, you have very little left and your teammates are cold. We're going to beat you.
But old school cats, no matter what, whether you talk about players or coaches, they look for the level of accountability that they had to endure, and they want that level of consistency accorded to generations to follow. And I think that's what you heard Robert Parrish speaking about, and I can respect that.
Real quick, Stephen A., you're part of the coverage tonight for our game in Houston, Western Conference. Got a score for me?
Yes, I have a score. Golden State Warriors 112, Houston Rockets 107.
I don't have a score. I just have Houston winning because if they don't win, they may get swept.
Max, who you got
Houston,
winning?
one possession. Houston, one possession.
All right.
I understand where Kellerman is coming from with him prognosticating the one possession victory by the Houston Rockets. It wouldn't shock me. I probably should have made the same prediction because I do have the Golden State Warriors winning the series in 5 games. But I just saw how focused the Warriors were in Game 1. And I think that they're definitely going to come out in Game 2 trying to end this quick. And they're going to be willing to go blow for blow, toe-to-toe for the entire game. We're going to learn a lot about the Rockets tonight. We're going to learn a lot about them and their coach, D'Antoni. But anyway, peace.